my name's Zoe Swithenbank. I'm currently working at Lancaster University on an NIHR funded project looking at co-occurring alcohol and mental health problems. So one of our many work packages as part of that is that we have a PPI group made up of people with lived experience of both alcohol and mental health problems. And we're trying to sort of develop that group and get them as involved as possible really throughout the project. The main sort of objective, if you like, is to we're going to be looking at developing improved guidance for both people that use services and for people delivering services and commissioning them, for how to treat people with co-occurring alcohol and mental health problems, and also what people using the services, kind of what they should be, what they can ask for, what they should expect, and how to kind of support them through it, because as we found, existing guidance is a little bit patchy and not generally all that well followed. So we're trying to make it more accessible.
Fantastic. And I suppose when you're looking at that activity that you're undertaking, is that a recent kind of aspect that you've been taking part in? How long's that kind of been running for?
So the project started in February. So I joined in March. So it's a fairly new group.
Yeah.
We've had, I think, 3 meetings now. We've had 3
Okay.
meetings, yeah. We have monthly meetings. So obviously the beginning was trying to recruit and set up the group, which was actually a lot easier than I was anticipating.
Okay.
Recruitment can always be a challenge, whatever kind of research you're doing, but trying to get people who are willing to take part in monthly meetings, travel to Lancaster, and people who have this sort of specific lived experience and expertise that we were looking for. I thought we were going to struggle, but actually we ended up with more people than we could take, unfortunately. So which was great. But obviously, we had to turn some people away, which was a real shame.
Yeah. And I suppose when you're looking at those people who've engaged, have any of those people already had previous experience of this kind of activity? Have they taken part in PPI activity for other kind of projects and things like that, or are they quite kind of new to it?
We've got a bit of a variety, really. We've got a few people who have never really done anything like this, but found it really interesting and wanted to join in.
Yeah.
We're also really lucky in that we've got a PPI co-applicant for the grant. So before, when they were putting in the project grant, before I was involved in the project, a volunteer from an external organisation who basically do lived experience research and stuff like that. He's been on the project longer than I have, and was involved in putting the bid together. So we've got some really good experience there as well.
Fantastic. And I suppose when you're looking at any things that are working really well, or sort of key facilitators or anything that's been a bit of a barrier to you being able to implement this kind of activity, are there any sort of things that spring to mind?
I think there's always going to be a few challenges with setting up anything new. Generally, it's gone really well, and I think the fact that we've got some sort of minor niggles is pretty. It's a good thing that they're the only problems we've got. I think for me, one of the hardest things has been figuring out kind of my role in it, because a little bit about me is that I've kind of been involved in the other side of PPI for a while. So I've done quite a lot of sort of lived experience volunteering and some co-production work and research and service delivery and stuff. So I'm used to going and expecting to have to sort of not argue as such, but be quite vocal about how things should be done and what we need, because I'm used to it not being dealt with very well. But now I'm on the other side and trying to facilitate it, which I think it's great having both of those sort of insights, but for me, trying to remember which side I'm on and how to kind of shut up a bit and let everyone else speak, because I'm there as part of the research team, not as a person with lived experience. So that for me has been a bit of a learning curve. And also because this is something that I'm really kind of passionate about, but it's only actually a fairly small part of my role. It's one of 4 work packages. For me, it's trying to kind of make sure it's done really well and that I give it as much time and energy as I can, but without letting it take over.
Okay, yeah. And I suppose that looks at looking at some of those kind of key lessons that I've learned you know, from the activities so far, that sounds like there's quite a few kind of aspects that are coming out there from a personal as well as a sort of a more whole sort of research approach.
Yeah, I think so. One of the big ones has been trying to sort of navigate the university like admin systems and everything else. We've got an ongoing issue with payments being delayed, which
Okay.
is a payments are kind of a big part of it. I think it's really important that we do pay people for their time and make sure they know that their input is valued.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're very upfront about that and that we do that, but we're having a few issues with payments taking quite a long time and being kind of caught between the finance team going, it's on our list to do, and people going, but I need this money.
Okay.
That's quite a challenge. I haven't quite figured out how to fix that yet, but all I have been doing is trying to be as sort of upfront with people as possible and let people know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Do you think that might deter people from future participation? You know, I mean, when you're saying those issues around sort of payment, how has everybody kind of still been coming back to your regular meetings, even though that kind of issue around payment is still there?
So far,
Yeah,
I'm
that's good.
hoping that we can resolve it and make everyone kind of keep everyone happy enough that
Yeah.
they will keep coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a concern of mine that if we don't do that, then we're not keeping up our end of the bargain. Basically, we said you do this, you come and give us your time, and we will pay you for that. And
Yeah.
I can see why people would be quite frustrated with that. So it's important, and I was very happy when I started this project to find out that had been costed in,
Yes.
a acceptable rate, and that it was accepted are quite important, because I know it's an issue ongoing with some organisations that whether they do pay or whether they think it has to be vouchers because of various issues.
Yeah.
So I was happy that we give people the option of what suits them, and that's been quite popular.
Yeah, so that is obviously an important aspect of any kind of PPI engagement is that you're actually valuing the input and the time of the people who are taking part in your activities.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose when you're looking kind of more generally at sort of public involvement and engagement activity kind of as a whole related to health research, do you think there are any kind of particular challenges that face kind of meaningful public involvement and engagement activity? Or, you know, maybe there's just one, and how might they be overcome?
I think trying to keep it meaningful is a really important aspect, because it's either not done very well or people are very keen to do it but perhaps don't know how or why to do it.
Okay.
So having been on both sides of this, I do think it's really important that we let people know what the project's all about and what their involvement means. Not just we want your involvement because it ticks a box on the grant application. Instead, we want your input because it's important to the development of the project, or whatever that may be. So letting people know exactly what it is we want from them and why it's important, and being clear about that on both sides up front.
That's great. And obviously you've mentioned there some of your own experiences are kind of around, you know, public involvement and engagement in research and sort of, you know, undertaking that for the first time. I suppose, would you have any tips for someone who is starting sort of public engagement involvement activity for health research, you know, for the first time if they've not done it before?
I think with most things, it's talk to people, find out what other people have done, how they've done it well, what you can learn, and just be kind of open and honest with your group or your whatever your audience is.
Yeah.
That you don't have to know everything. We don't expect everyone to know everything, but being honest that you don't and asking their opinion, I think, goes quite a long way.
Yeah.
It can put people off, I think, not knowing how to do it perfectly, and that's something that's kind of bothered me, that we're not doing it well enough.
Okay.
But it's being honest that we don't know, we're trying to learn because it's important, and we will keep learning as we go.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I suppose when you're looking at sort of sustainability of public you know, involvement and engagement activities, have you got any top tips around that? You know, what do you think are the kind of important aspects for sustainable you know, activity such as this?
I think it's really important that we do keep it going throughout the project. So for me, it's letting people know. Communication, obviously, really important,
Yeah.
but communicating all the way through to let people know this is what's going on. We don't want this sort of where we have a little burst of activity and then we don't contact anyone for 6 months and then suddenly we want them to come back in.
Yeah.
So it's being quite consistent with, even if it's just an email to say this is what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's something we did at our very first meeting, was set up kind of terms of reference, or group guidance, as I think we ended up calling it, which was just setting up what people could expect from us, what we expected from them, and how we would communicate and what worked best for everyone. Because everyone's different and got their own preferences. So we've got a WhatsApp group which seems to be quite popular. And also, from my end, I said I would email everyone after every meeting with a sort of summary. I'm not taking minutes because it's not that sort of meeting, but recording things and making sure we follow up, and just trying to keep checking in with people and seeing what we can do to make sure everyone's feeling valued and that they want to keep involved.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Zoe. That's all the questions that I had, obviously, to ask you today, but it's been really lovely to speak to you. Thanks very much for your time.